Hey everybody, welcome back to Leosophy. This is the third in the self-improvement general series. Took me a second to remember the own name of the topic, but that's not to be confused with mental improvement. Intellectual improvement is different. Mental improvement, previous episode, is more about fortifying yourself against mental stressors, whereas intellectual improvement is about acquiring abstract resources in order to improve your life. Uh, and that's this is both my favorite of the three, but it's also the hardest to really explain because unlike physical fitness, where there's kind of a pretty hard rule, if you're in bad cardiovascular or respiratory shape, you're not healthy. Well, what is a healthy intellect? What makes a person smart? I know plenty of people who have engineering minds, and I don't, by the way, at all. And it astonishes me quite often how some of them that's sort of all they know, and I think that's going to be the real focus. Is how not to be an ant. That's really what this episode's about. Sorry, I hear somebody's. I think that's a dirt bike. Yeah. Anyway, uh, so what do I mean by how not to be an ant? Well, there's just so many monotasker people, and it's disturbing. We live in a year where people become increasingly knowledgeable about one thing, and there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. There's nothing wrong with being a master or a doctor of, I don't know, Renaissance art restoration, or I don't know, the anthropological development of New Guinea or something. There's nothing wrong with that. In fact, it's wonderful to be like a foremost expert at one really, really specific thing that you happen to be very passionate about. That's great. In fact, I would recommend that if you have a passion, that's the first step right there to intellectual improvement is research, research, research whatever you're most passionate about. That's great. But if that's all you know, if that's all your focus, that's where people run into trouble because you can't really, you could make a living, but are you living if you're not really examining and enjoying every possible sphere and facet of your life? If you're just good at one thing and you're making money at that one thing and you're surviving, that's okay, I guess. But I mean, is that really worth living? Not to try to steal from, I think it was Socrates, something like the unexamined life is not worth living. But I mean, I agree, and it doesn't even have to do with what he said. It's just it feels like it should be common sense that you should try and be good, try to be a generalist, and be decent at a lot of things, and doubly so if they make you happy. Triply so if they make you uncomfortable, because that's also really important to any kind of improvement is discomfort. But quadruply so if it can improve the way you experience life. So what are things that I highly recommend? I know I said it last time and the time before, and I alluded that I would say it again. But big advocate of taking walks. It's good for all three. It's good for your mental health, it's good for your physical health, and it's good for your intellectual health. Why? Because when you're walking, it's kind of like shower thoughts. When you're walking and you're observing things, you're not really thinking a lot about, you know, what you had for breakfast, what you're going to make for dinner, work, emails, etc. You're not thinking about those things. And so what's great about that is it allows parts of your mind, that subconscious parts, to sort of bubble up and really let their voice be heard. I know that sounds like I'm saying that you're multiple people, but in some ways you kind of are. You're letting creative components of your mind become loud enough for you to hear. That's where the whole, I made a video about that, shower thoughts. Well, walk thoughts are similar. If anything, they're more cohesive too, and they're not as sporadic. So walks are great for your intellectual well-being. Meditation, similarly, I know that it's good for all three also. Yeah, it'll lower your blood pressure, it'll lower your cholesterol probably, I don't flipping know. It'll relax you and fortify you against mental stressors. It will improve your capacity to grow intellectually. So, highly recommend those to everyone. But then there's other things that I think are just sort of good curriculum vitae for, I totally misused that word, I think. But it's good prereqs for being a generalist, for not being an ant. So here are some. Number one, big one. Learn another language. Learn another language. It will rewire your brain in really positive ways. There's no downside and loads of upsides intellectually to learning another language. The other one that I highly recommend, and I'm also a total hypocrite because I can't, and I should, and you know what, in fact, now, saying it out loud, I'll try to do this year, really will. Learn an instrument. Learning an instrument, great thing. Number three, playing games that improve your mind. It's very easy, and I know it's super popular right now because of that Netflix show, but chess. Doesn't have to be chess, though. Maybe you're super into StarCraft. Maybe you're, which, you know, if you're, no, I'm not going to make a joke about Koreans, I swear. There's lots of things that you can do that are activities that are good for your mind. There was even a buzzword a few years back, neuroplasticity and mind games and all that. But really, I just now realized, oh my God, I'm recommending, I didn't even think of this, my intellectual improvement roster, curriculum, whatever. It's actually, I can't believe it, I didn't even think of this until just now. It lines up almost 100% with being a knight. Holy moly. So the opposite of an ant is a knight, apparently. Because, yeah, if you were a page or squire and you were learning to be a knight, you had to learn chess, you had to learn another language, you had to learn how to play an instrument. It's so bizarre. I did not even consider that. And a lot of knights actually meditated, interestingly enough. It was a different form than what I'm recommending, simply because Christian mystic meditation is just not super popular. In fact, that's another thing I'd like to do this year. I'd like to learn how they meditated. I bet I could find. So anyway, sorry, totally getting off topic. But those are the big things I recommend for intellectual improvement. Learning another language, learning an instrument, meditation, walks, and then lastly, and this one I'm going to sound like an after-school special, but read. Read about a lot of things. That's the big key there. Particularly nonfiction. That's something that I was late to the game on. When I was a kid, I loved fiction. When I was a teenager, I loved fiction. When I was a young adult, I loved fiction. And I still love fiction. But only the past 5 or 6 years have I really gotten into reading nonfiction. And it can be great as long as you don't just become addicted to reading self-improvement stuff and not actually improving, which does happen, by the way. Fair warning, I've seen it happen many times. But, you know, How to Win Friends and Influence People, The Art of War, The Book of Five Rings, A Random Walk Down Wall Street, as I previously mentioned in another video, The Five Pillars of Investing, anything religious, anything. The Bible, Lao Tzu, Chuang Tzu, Confucius, the Buddha, trying to think, the Quran, any of them, anything religious. It's not that it will necessarily make you religious, but learning about the philosophical view of an entire structure of belief is very mind expanding. If I could snap my fingers and make people do anything I wanted, like just Thanos style, it would probably be to have everyone read all the major religious discourses and philosophical ones too, but that's a lot longer. And that's another one, incidentally. Even if you're not interested in philosophy, reading about philosophy can really improve your outlook on life. Because, one, they tend to grapple with questions that you probably are grappling with. You just may not be saying them out loud. That's a huge advantage right there, is reading that. I would highly recommend any of the Stoics for that, simply because they were really good at writing down their ideas well. Meditations by Marcus Aurelius and On the Good Life by Cicero come to mind. But read. I sound like an after-school special. I know, reading takes you to another world. But I've never seen this in an after-school special mentioned. Not only does reading really take you to another world, you can actually go there and acquire resources that don't exist in this world because they're abstract resources, and bring them back. Bring them back and use them the rest of your life. Think about that. How amazing is that about reading? You can literally go to a place that doesn't exist when you read. You can acquire things that don't exist physically, and you can bring them back, and now you have those resources. You have those abstract gold nuggets forever. Well, as long as your hippocampus is still working. How cool is that? So yeah, that's my intellectual improvement recommendations. And yeah, I'm gonna try and put more of them into practice for myself. So that's this specific video is not just my thoughts on it. It's also kind of like a little way of reminding me, like, hey, you need to do that too. I am doing that, but I need to do it more, and I need to take my own medicine. So yeah, like, share, subscribe, keep asking questions. Bye.